U.S. immigration consultant and Jamaican realtor, on the line with us. And I'm sure she's going to need more time today because there's so much that is happening in the United States. Opal Lee, buenos dias, ¿cómo está ustedes?
Oh, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? I'm good, and all of that good stuff. Hi, Vernon. Of course, also good afternoon to your wonderful listeners.
Great to have you. Quite a lot is happening. Tell us in the United States. So what I say, it was not bombshell. We expected it. Many persons voted for it. Let's hear more about it.
Exactly, that's exactly what happened. So, as you know, there's no now a new president in town, a new captain of the ship.
Uh-huh.
From day one of President Trump being reinstated into power, he has listed out several executive orders. And of course, a lot of those, or many of those, has to do with immigration. One of the big ones, of course, is the birthright citizenship. He has passed an executive or signed an executive order saying that people who are born in the United States, or if you enter here on a visiting visa or for temporary, or if you're an undocumented immigrant and you have a child here, then that child is not considered a United States citizen because you did not have status. So at least one parent, so the father would need to be a United States citizen or legal permanent resident for them to recognize that that child that you have here is also a United States citizen. What he's trying to do is cut down on those anchor babies, what we call anchor babies, where people just enter the United States because they're pregnant, Vernon, just to have a child here because they want the child to be a U.S. citizen. But what he's saying, it's not going to be automatic. Of course, it has already been challenged. About 16 states have already sued President Trump
Okay.
about this
Mm,
to say, listen, it's unconstitutional because birthright is ingrained in the Constitution. It's basically protected and ingrained in the 14th Amendment, which basically says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The second part is what Donald Trump is challenging the second part of that sentence because it says the persons need to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So what he's saying, if you're just visiting the United States, you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which doesn't make sense because if you're saying, unlawful immigrants are not subject, then how can you arrest them? How can you tell them that they need to abide by laws if they're not subject to the United States? So I think when the forefathers did the Constitution, they
yes.
it was their belief or their desire that
Hmm.
as soon as you're born in the United States, you're considered a United States citizen. Of course, there are limited exceptions. For example, if you are a diplomat, for example, and had a child here, then no, that child is not considered a United States citizen, but that's a whole different story. But other than
Right.
that, you're considered. So it's being challenged. But yes, it had rolled out. There's several new things. But I think that the major one
Made one.
is
But
is
it
that one that
seemed
has
to be
been
in my
signed.
understanding that when it comes to citizenship for, I can't say all, but for a significant amount of countries that I am aware of, it is enshrined in the Constitution how one becomes a citizen. Therefore, I would be amazed if that is not so in the American Constitution. I know that Britain doesn't have a constitution, but that is such a crucial thing. So I am trying to figure how would an executive order, and an executive order really can be made which is contrary to what is required under the Constitution. Am I
And
correct?
yes, you're absolutely correct because, as a matter of fact, this was challenged before in a case called U.S. versus, I think, Wong Kim Ark, or let's call it Wong Ark. He was born in the United States to immigrant parents who did not
Right.
have their papers, and they challenged it. And this very argument that Donald Trump is now making, that was made before, and the Supreme Court struck it down. I mean, Mr. Ark, he won and paved the way to make it clear that as long as you're born in the United States, you are a U.S. Citizen. You are subject to the U.S. citizens' jurisdiction, and therefore you are a United States citizen. As a matter of fact, the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, it actually overturned there was an old Dred Scott decision that had
Yes.
denied Black Americans the rights and protections of the U.S. citizenship. Yes, because they thought Black Americans were not subject to the jurisdiction,
You're
and that was
lesser
a
human
dreaded.
beings.
Exactly. That was, but that's some old, what, from 18 something. That was an old
Yes,
case.
yes. A
And
chattel
so, because
of before.
exactly, you remember when the slavery we're talking about,
Yes, yes.
and so in 1868, though, that case was overturned, where now Black Americans have the right. So even though you're Black American, you have your child here, they're now considered U.S.
Hmm.
citizens. And so with the case I just told you about, the Wong
Yes.
arc, it is solidified. But Donald Trump being who Donald Trump is,
Hmm.
he's going to go ahead and sign whatever he wants to sign, and of course it's going to be challenged. Yes, I know that his party has
Controls
the
the Supreme Court.
House, and that too, the House, the
Yes.
Senate, and has appointed Supreme Court justices. So a lot of
Right.
people are thinking, yes, I know that Congress, that they would have to change. Basically, they would have to change the Constitution, and so they're thinking they have enough, or to go forward to try and do it. But only
Yes.
time will tell where that's concerned. But
It would seem
it
to me
can't be
though.
done by executive order,
Yeah.
though, for
It
sure.
seemed to me though, Opal, even although he controls Congress and the Senate, and I guess if my understanding, probably controlling the Supreme Court.
He's not, no, that's not a proper word to say control, because the Supreme Court's by right.
Yes, I
They're
should not
supposed
use
to
the
be
word control.
neutral. They're supposed to be
So,
neutral. But he is
really?
appointed
Yes,
Donald Trump,
yes,
or I
yes.
should say, most of the Supreme Court justices were appointed by Republicans. Let's
Remember, you're a
put it that
lawyer.
way.
I'm not. I'm just a layman. So I'm still going to think that he
Let's put it
controls
that
it.
way.
But it would seem to me, being a layman, that although there are certain laws which the court will have to interpret, but it's clear that it has been decided on already, although they can, I guess, overturn another ruling of a previous Supreme
Supreme Court,
Court.
yes, they could.
But if the law is clear, it would seem to me they'll be in a very awkward position to side with the president on this one. So let's see how things go.
Mhm. And I mean,
Right.
there's so many other things, but there may be one other thing, and I guess
Yes.
this is a positive on the US side of things. If you are applying for an immigrant visa, you know how Donald Trump and his party, they're against this whole COVID vaccine because they thought it was a farce in the beginning. So one good thing about that is that he has now made it where you no longer, for people who are applying for green cards, no longer need to take the COVID vaccine or show proof that they're been vaccinated against the COVID virus.
What time? That's neither here nor there. COVID going on?
I, I know, but the thing is that there are people, I mean, I even did consult with someone up to a couple of weeks ago who did not want to take the COVID vaccine, believe it
Yes.
or not. And so that would have been a block to that person becoming a
Mm,
green card holder. They would have needed to file an I-601 waiver or otherwise seek, uh, a waiver of the need to do that. And
mm.
so now that person doesn't need to.
That's quite interesting. And of course, there are quite a few other decisions that he has made. Um, there's withdrawing from the what? The WHO. I wonder what impact that is
Yes.
going to have on that body and the world. You know,
Definitely,
quite a
definitely. But you know how Trump is saying that they weren't fair to the U.S. in the first place. But you know how Trump is Trump.
yes,
So
yes.
that's why he's saying that it's going to he in his mind it's going to be a benefit to the U.S. But we'll see. I think this is not. The U.S. is going to feel this, but the next 4 years, all we have to do is buckle up and sit tight and fight the good fight.
Quite the good fight. Opal, boy, you still have a lot more to give us this morning. You're a lawyer, you're a historian, you're a political analyst, you're everything this morning. And therefore, I learned quite a lot. I'm sure my listeners learned quite a lot. And you probably have to go back on it next year, even next year, next
Next week.
week, because there's quite a bit more. And I must tell you, Jamaicans and even our listeners in the US, they are quite fascinated and they are interested in what is happening. And you're telling us about how the law works and the Constitution. Yes, quite beneficial. Oh, quickly, just tell us how we can make contact with you openly.
Thank you, Vernon. And quickly, there's been a lot of raids, so even workplace raids. So that's something, but we'll talk about that another time. All right. So
Yes.
for Opal Lee, it's in Jamaica. Is 876 876-854-3599. That's 876-854-3599. In the United States, it's 954-358-2020. That's 954-358-2020. Or you may go to our website, www.flowjamlegal.com. Thanks as always, Vernon.
Opal Lee, thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. And you probably need to talk about yourself next week, about the impact also that all of this will have on your profession. I'm sure more persons will be wise for them to know, definitely talk with you before they act. Take
Sounds
care,
good.
Opal Lee. Have a wonderful day, my friend.